Queen Zarathel stood on the bridge of her massive ship. She looked out at the stars and felt empty inside. For 300 years she had ruled the Vextai Empire. She commanded 17 star systems. Billions of people followed her orders. But she had never felt so alone. Her purple skin glowed softly in the ship's lights. Her 4 arms moved as she touched different control panels. The other Vextai on the bridge kept their distance. They all feared her. This made her feel even more lonely. "My queen," said Commander Vexcott as he walked up to her. His voice was careful and respectful. "The council is worried about you." Zarathel turned to look at him. Her 6 eyes focused on his face. "Worried? Why?" "You spend too much time alone. You need company." Vexcott's words came out slowly. He seemed uncomfortable talking about this topic. "I have millions of subjects," Zarathel said with a cold voice. "That is not the same thing, my queen. The council thinks you need someone, just for you. Someone who can entertain you." Zarathel raised one eyebrow. She had heard about the new pleasure robots that were being sold at Kepler Station. The black market there sold many illegal things. Rich people from across the galaxy bought strange items there. "You want me to buy a robot?" she asked. "The traders say these androids are very advanced. They look real. They act real. They can talk and think. But they will always obey you." Vexcott handed her a data pad. "This one costs a fortune, but it is supposed to be the best." Zarathel looked at the information on the screen. The description said the android had perfect features and advanced programming. It could learn and adapt. The price was huge even for someone with her wealth. "Fine," she said after a long moment. "Buy it, but do it quietly. I don't want the whole empire knowing about this." "Of course, my queen." Vexcott bowed and left to make the arrangements. Far away, on a small mining planet called New Texas, Jake Martinez was having the worst day of his life. He crawled through a tight air vent trying to fix a broken fan. Sweat dripped from his face. The air was hot and dusty. Jake was 28 years old and had worked as an engineer for 5 years. He was good with machines and computers. People said he was quiet, but he was also kind. He always helped others when they needed it. The mining colony had about 2,000 people. They dug rare metals from the planet's surface. Jake kept their machines running. It was hard work, but it was honest work. "Jake!" someone shouted from below. "The alarm is going off." Jake stopped working and listened. He could hear sirens wailing throughout the colony. His heart started beating fast. Alarms meant danger. He crawled quickly through the vent and dropped down into the main hallway. People were running everywhere. Their faces showed fear and panic. "What's happening?" Jake asked a woman who ran past him. "Pirates!" she screamed. "They're attacking the colony." Jake's blood went cold. Space pirates were known for being cruel. They took anything valuable and often captured people to sell as slaves. The colony's small security force could not fight against a real pirate ship. Explosions shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jake could hear the sound of energy weapons firing outside. He ran toward the main exit to see if he could help. When he reached the entrance, he saw armed figures in black armor walking through the colony. They carried advanced weapons that the colonists had no chance against. Some colonists tried to fight back, but the pirates quickly defeated them. "Everyone on the ground," shouted one of the pirates. "Anyone who fights back dies." Jake dropped to his knees with his hands up. He watched as the pirates moved through the crowd of colonists. They were looking for young, healthy people who would bring good prices at the slave markets. "This one," said a pirate, pointing at Jake. "He looks strong." 2 pirates grabbed Jake's arms and pulled him to his feet. They put metal cuffs on his wrists. The cuffs were electronic and would shock him if he tried to escape. "Where are you taking us?" Jake asked. The pirate laughed. "You're going to make us rich, human. There are people out there who pay good money for your kind." They forced Jake and 30 other colonists onto their ship. The inside was dirty and smelled bad. They pushed the prisoners into a cargo hold with no windows. The door closed with a heavy sound. Jake sat in the darkness with the other prisoners. Some people were crying. Others sat in shocked silence. He tried to think of a way to escape, but the electronic cuffs made it impossible. For 3 days, they traveled through space. The pirates gave them little food and water. Jake tried to stay strong for the others, but he was scared too. Finally, the ship stopped. Jake could hear voices outside the cargo hold. The door opened and bright light hurt their eyes. "Bring them out," ordered a new voice. "Let's see what we have." The pirates forced the prisoners out of the ship. They were now on Kepler Station, a massive space station that floated in empty space. The station was a place where criminals did business away from the law. Jake looked around at the busy marketplace. Aliens of many different species walked around buying and selling illegal goods. The air smelled of strange foods and engine fuel. "Fresh humans," called out a trader. "Perfect for labor or entertainment." The trader was a thin alien with green skin and too many teeth. He looked at each prisoner like they were pieces of meat. When he got to Jake, he stopped and smiled. "This one is special," the trader said. "Look at those muscles. Look at that face. Someone will pay extra for this human." The trader took photos of Jake and put his information into a computer. Within hours, Jake's picture was being sent across the galaxy to potential buyers. On her ship, Queen Zarathel received a message on her private communication system. Vexcott had found what she ordered. The message included a photo and basic information about the android. "Excellent work," she said, looking at the image. The creature looked different from any robot she had seen before. Its features seemed very real and natural. "The seller says it has the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created," Vexcott explained. "It will learn your preferences and adapt to please you." "Send the payment," Zarathel ordered. "I want it delivered immediately." Back on Kepler Station, the green trader received the payment notification. His eyes went wide when he saw the amount. Someone had just paid enough money to buy a small spacecraft for one human slave. "Prepare the special package," he told his workers. "Use the best transport container. This buyer paid premium prices." The workers put Jake into a luxury transport pod. The inside was comfortable with soft padding and clean air. They gave him a medical injection that made him fall asleep. "Sweet dreams, human," the trader said as the pod closed. "You're going to make someone very happy." The transport pod was loaded onto a fast courier ship. Jake slept peacefully as the ship traveled through hyperspace toward Queen Zarathel's flagship. He had no idea that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. Queen Zarathel waited in her private chambers for the delivery. She had prepared a special room for her new companion. She was curious to see how realistic this android would be. When the transport pod arrived, her guards brought it to her chambers. She dismissed everyone and opened the pod herself. She wanted privacy for this moment. Jake was still sleeping from the injection. Zarathel looked down at him with interest. The android looked incredibly real. She could see his chest moving as he breathed. His skin looked soft and warm. She reached out with one of her hands and touched his face. The skin felt real too. The makers of this android had done amazing work. Jake's eyes opened slowly. He was confused and groggy from the medicine. When he saw the tall alien queen standing over him, his eyes went wide with shock and fear. "Hello," Zarathel said in perfect English. She had learned many languages during her long life. "I am your new owner." Jake tried to speak, but only a small sound came out. This was not what he had expected. He was supposed to be a slave, but this alien was treating him like something else entirely. Zarathel smiled, showing her sharp teeth. She thought his reaction was part of his programming. The android seemed very realistic indeed. Jake sat up slowly in the transport pod. His head felt dizzy from the medicine they had given him. The alien queen stood above him, all 7 feet of her purple form. Her 6 eyes watched his every move with curiosity. "Stand up," Zarathel commanded. Her voice was deep and powerful. Jake climbed out of the pod on shaky legs. He looked around the room with amazement. Everything was made from materials he had never seen before. The walls glowed with soft light. Strange symbols moved across surfaces, like living text. "What is this place?" Jake asked quietly. Zarathel tilted her head. The android's voice sounded very natural. Even its confusion seemed real. You are on my flagship. I am Queen Zarathel of the Vextai Empire. Jake's mind raced. He had heard stories about the Vextai. They were one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy. They conquered planets and enslaved entire species. What did this queen want with him? I don't understand, Jake said. Why am I here? You are my new companion. You will entertain me and keep me company. Zarathel walked around him in a circle, studying him from all angles. The seller said you were the most advanced android ever made. Jake's eyes went wide. Android? I'm not an android. I'm human. Zarathel stopped walking. She stared at him with all 6 of her eyes. For a moment she said nothing. Then she laughed loudly. Very good, she said. Your programming makes you think you are real. That is impressive. Jake opened his mouth to argue, but then he stopped. If this alien queen thought he was a robot, maybe that would keep him alive longer. Real humans were often killed or tortured by the Vextai, but a valuable android might be treated better. Yes, Jake said carefully. I am very advanced. Zarathel seemed pleased by this answer. Excellent. Come, let me show you your new home. She led Jake through the massive ship. The hallways were huge, designed for beings much larger than humans. Jake had to take quick steps to keep up with the queen's long strides. They passed other Vextai in the corridors. Each one immediately dropped to their knees when they saw the queen. Their forearms crossed over their chests in respect. Jake noticed how they all seemed afraid of her. Why do they do that? Jake asked. They show respect to their queen, Zarathel answered. It is our way. Aren't you lonely, if everyone is afraid of you? Zarathel stopped walking. She turned to look at Jake with surprise. No one had ever asked her such a question before. Androids are not supposed to ask personal questions, she said slowly. I'm still learning, Jake replied. My programming is adapting. They continued walking. Zarathel brought Jake to a large room with windows that showed the stars outside. Jake gasped when he saw the view. Space was beautiful from here, full of colors he had never seen before. You like it? Zarathel asked. She watched his face carefully. It's amazing, Jake said honestly. I've never seen anything like this. The queen seemed pleased by his reaction. Most of her subjects acted like they had seen everything before. They never showed real wonder or excitement about anything. This will be your room, she said, opening a door. You will stay here when I do not need you. The room was larger than Jake's entire apartment back on New Texas. It had a comfortable bed, a sitting area, and its own bathroom. Everything was designed for someone much bigger than him, but it was still luxurious. Thank you, Jake said. Over the next few days, Queen Zarathel visited Jake regularly. She was fascinated by his reactions to everything around him. Unlike her subjects, who always agreed with everything she said, Jake asked questions and gave his honest opinions. What is your home planet like? Zarathel asked one day. They were sitting in her private dining room eating strange alien foods. Jake thought carefully before answering. He decided to tell her about Earth, but he would make it sound like programming memories instead of real experiences. My makers programmed me with memories of a planet called Earth, he said. It has blue oceans and green plants. The air smells like flowers in spring. People live in small groups called families, and they care about each other. Families? Zarathel looked confused. What is that? Parents and children who live together. They love each other and help each other. When someone is hurt or sad, the others try to make them feel better. Zarathel was quiet for a long time. The Vextai did not have families. Children were raised by the state. Personal relationships were seen as weakness. That sounds nice, she said finally. Jake could see something in her eyes that looked like sadness. This powerful queen who ruled billions of people seemed as lonely as he felt. Tell me about your empire, Jake said. What is it like to rule so many worlds? It is my duty, Zarathel answered. I was born to rule. I make decisions that affect countless lives. I must be strong and show no weakness. But what do you do for fun? What makes you happy? Again, Zarathel looked surprised by the question. Fun? Happiness? These are not important for a ruler. Everyone needs some happiness, Jake said gently. Even queens. Commander Vexcott watched these conversations from hidden cameras. He was growing worried about the android's influence on their queen. She was acting differently since it arrived. She seemed softer, more thoughtful. During a council meeting, Zarathel surprised everyone by asking about the welfare of workers on their mining planets. Are they being treated well? She asked. Do they have enough food and rest? The council members looked at each other in confusion. The queen had never cared about such things before. They are productive, my queen, one council member answered. That is what matters. But are they happy? Zarathel pressed. Happiness is not relevant, my queen, another member said carefully. Zarathel frowned. After the meeting, she went to find Jake. She found him in the ship's garden, a place where food plants were grown. He was studying the alien flowers with fascination. On Earth, Jake said when he saw her, people grow flowers just because they are beautiful, not for food or profit, just for the joy of seeing something lovely. That seems wasteful, Zarathel said, but her voice was not sure. Maybe. But beauty feeds the soul, even if it doesn't feed the body. Zarathel picked one of the flowers and held it up to the light. She had never really looked at one before. The colors were indeed beautiful. Your programming is very sophisticated, she said. Thank you, Jake replied. One day, Jake was exploring the ship when he overheard two Vextai soldiers talking. The queen is becoming weak, one said. She cares too much about foolish things now. It's that android, the other replied. Commander Vexcott thinks it's dangerous. Jake felt a chill run through his body. If they discovered he was really human, they would probably kill him. He needed to be more careful. That evening, when Zarathel came to visit him, Jake noticed she looked tired. Are you well? He asked. I had to make a difficult decision today, she said. A planet in our empire is having problems. The people are hungry because their crops failed. My advisors say we should let them figure it out themselves. What do you think? Jake asked. I think we should help them, but that is not the Vextai way. Jake moved closer to her. Maybe the Vextai way isn't always right. Zarathel looked at him sharply. You should not say such things. I'm sorry. My programming is still adapting, Jake said quickly. But later that night, Zarathel lay in her bed thinking about Jake's words. For the first time in her life, she wondered if there might be a better way to rule than through fear and strength alone. The next day, she announced that the Empire would send food and supplies to the hungry planet. Her council was shocked, but they could not argue with their queen. Commander Vexcott grew more suspicious. He began secretly investigating the android's background. Something about it did not seem right. Meanwhile, Jake found himself in a strange situation. He was starting to care about Queen Zarathel. Despite her fearsome reputation, he could see that she was trying to be a better ruler. She listened to his ideas and seemed to genuinely want to help her people. But he also knew this situation could not last forever. Eventually, someone would discover the truth about what he really was. When that happened, he would probably die. And somewhere deep in space, the Empire's enemies were watching. They had noticed the changes in Queen Zarathel's behavior. Some saw it as weakness. Others saw it as an opportunity. Jake had no idea that his presence on the ship was about to change not just one alien queen's life, but the fate of entire star systems. As he fell asleep in his luxurious room, he dreamed of Earth and wondered if he would ever see his home again. 2 months had passed since Jake arrived on Queen Zarathel's ship. The changes in the queen were becoming impossible to ignore. She spent less time in her throne room making harsh judgments. Instead, she walked through the ship, talking to her crew members about their lives and problems. My queen, said Captain Zelandra one morning, the workers in Engineering Section 5 say their shifts are too long. They want shorter hours. In the past, Zarathel would have dismissed such complaints immediately. Workers should be grateful to serve the Empire. But now she paused and thought about Jake's words about happiness and treating people well. How long are their shifts? She asked. 16 hours, my queen. Standard for their level. Reduce them to 12 hours. Happy workers do better work. Captain Zelandra's 4 eyes went wide with surprise, but she bowed and left to carry out the order. Word of the Queen's strange new policies spread throughout the ship. Some crew members were pleased. Others were confused and worried. This was not the way things had always been done. Commander Vexcott watched these changes with growing alarm. He had served under Queen Zarathel for 50 years. She had always been strong, decisive, and ruthless when necessary. Now she seemed to care more about feelings than about power. He knew the android was responsible for these changes. Every day the Queen spent hours talking with the machine. Whatever it was telling her was making her weak. We need to discuss the android, Vexcott said during a private meeting with the Queen. What about it? Zarathel asked. She was reading reports about farming conditions on one of their agricultural planets. It is influencing you in ways that concern the Council. Zarathel looked up from her reports. Her 6 eyes focused on Vexcott with a sharp intensity that made him step back. Are you saying I am not capable of making my own decisions? Her voice was dangerously quiet. Of course not, my queen. But this android has access to your private thoughts. It could be programmed by your enemies to manipulate you. The android has no hidden agenda, Zarathel said firmly. It simply helps me see things from different perspectives. But Vexcott's words planted a seed of doubt in her mind. That evening, when Jake came to have dinner with her, she watched him more carefully. Tell me about your makers, she said suddenly. Who created you? Jake's heart skipped a beat. He had hoped she would never ask detailed questions about his supposed origins. They were scientists, he said carefully, from a research facility. They wanted to create the perfect companion. What were their names? What planet were they from? Jake's mind raced. He needed to give her believable answers without revealing the truth. Dr. Anderson and Dr. Parker, he said, using common names. They worked on Luna Station near Earth. Zarathel nodded, but Jake could see she was thinking hard about something. He hoped his answers had been convincing. The next day brought an unexpected crisis. A messenger ship arrived with urgent news. The Chromal Empire, longtime enemies of the Vextai, was threatening to attack a valuable mining system. They demanded that the Vextai withdraw from 3 planets or face war. Zarathel called an emergency council meeting. Her military advisors recommended immediate strikes against Chromal worlds. We should destroy their fleet before they can attack us, General Moxtel declared. Show them the price of threatening the Vextai Empire. But that would mean war, Zarathel said. Millions would die. Sometimes war is necessary, my queen, Commander Vexcott added. We cannot appear weak. Zarathel dismissed the council and went to find Jake. She found him in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. I need your advice, she said, sitting. Down beside him, Jake was surprised. She had never asked for his advice on military matters before. Tell me about the situation, he said. Zarathel explained the crisis with the Chromal Empire. Jake listened carefully, thinking about what he knew of human diplomacy and conflict resolution. What if you offered them something they want more than those 3 planets? Jake suggested. Like what? Trade agreements, technology sharing, maybe. They're not just being aggressive. Maybe they need something and this is the only way they know how to ask for it. Zarathel stared at him. In all her years as queen, no one had ever suggested that enemies might have legitimate needs instead of just evil intentions. You think we should negotiate with them? It's worth trying. What's the worst that could happen? If talking fails, you can still fight. But if fighting comes first, talking becomes impossible. The next morning, Zarathel shocked her council by announcing she would send a diplomatic mission to the Chromal Empire instead of launching an attack. My queen, General Moxtel protested. This shows weakness. Our enemies will think we are afraid to fight. Let them think what they want, Zarathel replied. I want to try a different approach. The diplomatic mission was led by Ambassador Kexria, one of the few Vextai who had experience with peaceful negotiations. To everyone's surprise, the talks were successful. The Chromal Empire revealed that they were facing a food shortage due to crop failures on their agricultural worlds. They had been planning to take the Vextai mining planets to trade the minerals for food from other species. Instead, Zarathel offered them a deal. The Vextai would provide food supplies in exchange for exclusive mining rights to asteroids in Chromal space. Both empires would benefit, and no one would have to die in a war. When news of the successful negotiations reached the ship, many crew members were amazed. They had avoided a costly war through talking instead of fighting, but not. Everyone was pleased. Commander Vexcott saw this as further proof that the android was making their queen weak and unpredictable. She negotiates with enemies instead of destroying them, he complained to his supporters. She cares more about worker happiness than imperial strength. This android is corrupting her mind. Meanwhile, Jake was dealing with his own internal conflicts. He had been on the ship for months now, and his feelings about the situation were becoming complicated. At first, he had only wanted to survive and find a way home. But now he found himself genuinely caring about Queen Zarathel. She was trying to be a better ruler, and he felt proud that his advice was helping her make positive changes. But he also felt guilty about the deception. She thought he was an advanced machine created to serve her. She had no idea he was a human, being with his own thoughts, feelings, and desires. One evening, Zarathel seemed unusually quiet during their dinner together. Is something wrong? Jake asked. I received a medical report today, she said slowly. I have been exposed to a rare toxin. It will make me very sick for several days. Jake felt a surge of concern. Is there anything I can do to help? Zarathel looked at him with surprise. You are programmed to care about my welfare, of course, but the medical staff will handle everything. I want to help, Jake insisted. Please let me stay with you. Over the next 3 days, Jake barely left Zarathel's side. When she was too weak to eat, he brought her small amounts of food and encouraged her to try. When fever made her delirious, he placed cool cloths on her forehead. When she couldn't sleep, he told her stories about Earth's natural wonders. The Vextai medical staff was puzzled by the android's behavior. They had never seen a machine show such genuine concern for its owner's well-being. It acts almost human, one doctor whispered to another. Impossible, the other replied. It's just sophisticated programming. But Jake's care for the queen went beyond any programming. He was worried about her as a person, not as his owner. When she was in pain, he felt pain too. When she started to recover, he felt genuine relief and happiness. Zarathel noticed the depth of his concern. No one in her life had ever cared for her so personally. Her subjects feared her. Her advisors served her for their own advancement, but Jake seemed to care about her as an individual. Why do you do this? She asked him one night as he sat beside her bed. Your programming only requires basic companionship. Jake looked into her 6 eyes and felt a deep urge to tell her the truth. But he knew that would probably mean his death. Because you matter to me, he said simply. It was the most honest thing he had said since arriving on the ship. While the Queen was recovering, Commander Vexcott had been busy. He had sent secret messages to scientists throughout the Empire, asking them to research the android's supposed creators. He was determined to find proof that the machine was not what it claimed to be. Finally, one of his contacts sent him disturbing news. There was no record of Dr. Anderson or Dr. Parker ever working on Luna Station. In fact, there was no record of advanced android research being conducted there at all. Vexcott smiled grimly. He had suspected the truth for weeks. Now he had evidence. The android was not an android at all. It was a human, and humans were one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Vexcott began planning his next move. He would expose the human's deception to the Council. They would demand its immediate execution, and then they would vote to conquer the human homeworld as punishment for this infiltration. But first, he needed to decide exactly when and how to. Reveal this information for maximum impact. Jake had no idea that his time was running out. As he sat beside Queen Zarathel's bed, watching her sleep peacefully, he felt something he had never expected to feel for an alien ruler. He was falling, in love with her, and that realization terrified him more than any threat of death. Zarathel and Jake moved quickly through the maintenance corridors of the massive ship. Jake's months of exploring had taught him routes that most crew members didn't know about. The alarm sirens still blared, and they could hear the sound of running feet as Vexcot's supporters took control of key areas. "The bridge is heavily guarded," Zarathel whispered as they crept through a ventilation shaft. "But if we can reach the secondary command center, I can override his access codes." "How many soldiers will he have?" Jake asked. "Maybe half the crew. The others will be confused and waiting to see who wins before choosing sides." They dropped down into a storage room near the command center. Through the door, they could hear voices. "The human has corrupted our queen's mind," one soldier was saying. "Commander Vexcot is right to take control. But she is still our rightful ruler," another voice argued. "This feels wrong." Jake looked at Zarathel. "Not everyone supports him. Some of your people are still loyal to you. Then we need to give them a reason to fight for us." They waited until the corridor was empty, then moved quickly to the secondary command center. Zarathel placed her hand on the security scanner. For a moment, nothing happened, and Jake worried that Vexcot had already changed the access codes. Then, the door slid open. "He was overconfident," Zarathel said with satisfaction. "He thought he had already won." Inside the command center, Zarathel began working frantically at the control panels. Her forearms moved across different systems simultaneously, a sight that still amazed Jake even after months of knowing her. "I'm accessing the ship's communication system," she explained. "I need to speak to the entire crew." "Attention, crew of the Imperial flagship," Zarathel's voice soon echoed throughout the ship. "This is your queen. Commander Vexcot has committed treason by attempting to remove me from command. I call upon all loyal Vextai to remember their oaths and restore order." Jake monitored the security screens while she spoke. He could see groups of soldiers stopping in corridors looking uncertain. Some began moving toward the bridge, but others seemed to be heading in their direction. "We've got company coming," Jake warned. "Almost finished," Zarathel replied. "I'm sending a message to Earth through the long-range communication array. Your people need to know what's coming." Jake watched as she transmitted coordinates and warning information to Earth. It might not be enough to save his homeworld, but at least they would have some advance notice. Heavy footsteps approached their location. Jake grabbed a Vextai energy weapon from the wall storage. He had never used one before, but he understood enough about technology to figure out the basic controls. "My queen," came Vexcot's voice from outside the door. "Open this door and surrender. Your human pet has poisoned your mind, but you can still be cured." "Never," Zarathel shouted back. "You are the traitor here, Vexcot." "Then you both die together." The door exploded inward as Vexcot's soldiers used heavy weapons to blast it open. Jake fired his weapon, surprising the attackers. His shots were not very accurate, but they forced the soldiers to take cover. Zarathel fought beside him with deadly precision. Her natural Vextai strength and warrior training made her a formidable opponent, but they were badly outnumbered. "We can't hold them off much longer," Jake said as he ducked behind a control panel. "The loyal crew members are fighting back," Zarathel observed, watching the security monitors. "But Vexcot still controls the main bridge." A new voice came over the ship's communication system. It was Vexcot, speaking to the entire crew. "Queen Zarathel has been compromised by a human infiltrator," he announced. "This dangerous alien has made her weak and unfit to rule. I am ordering all ships to begin the attack on the human homeworld immediately." Jake's blood ran cold. Even if they won this battle, the Vextai fleet might already be on its way to Earth. "I have to get home," Jake said. "I have to warn them." "How?" Zarathel asked. "Even if we retake the ship, the fleet is already moving." Jake thought quickly. "Are there any small, fast ships in the hangar bay?" "Yes, but you'd never make it to Earth in time. The fleet will use hyperspace jumps to get there quickly." Then I'll have to take a hyperspace-capable ship. Zarathel stared at him. You're talking about stealing a Vextai military vessel? Even if you could fly it, they would shoot you down before you escaped. Not if you order them not to. Jake, if you leave now, I'll probably die here. Vexcot won't show mercy once you're gone. Jake looked into her 6 eyes and felt his heart breaking. He loved her, but he also couldn't abandon his entire species. I have to try, he said quietly. But I'll come back for you. I promise. Zarathel reached out and touched his face gently with one of her hands. I know. And I love you for it. She activated her command codes one more time, opening a path through the ship's security systems. Hangar Bay 7 has a fast courier ship, she told him. I'm giving you access codes and temporarily promoting you to the rank of Special Envoy. That should get you past most checkpoints. Jake kissed her quickly, then ran toward the hangar bay while she continued fighting Vexcot's soldiers. The corridors were chaos. Some crew members recognized Jake and tried to stop him, but others were too busy fighting each other to pay attention to one small human. Jake reached Hangar Bay 7 and found the courier ship. It was sleek and fast, designed for carrying important messages across the galaxy. Using Zarathel's access codes, he managed to start the engines. As the ship lifted off, Jake could see the massive Vextai battle fleet through the hangar's force field. Dozens of enormous warships were preparing to jump to hyperspace. Earth didn't stand a chance against such a force. But Jake had an idea. Instead of flying directly to Earth, he plotted a course that would bring him to the edge of the solar system. Just before the Vextai fleet arrived, he sent an emergency transmission to Earth's defense forces, giving them the fleet's exact arrival coordinates and timing. More importantly, he transmitted everything he had learned about Vextai technology and tactics during his months on their ship. It wasn't much, but it might help Earth's defenders put up a better fight. When Jake arrived at Earth, he was amazed by what he found. The planet's various nations had put aside their differences and worked together to prepare defenses. Ships from every Earth fleet had gathered in space around the planet. But even with all of Earth's forces combined, they were vastly outnumbered by the approaching Vextai fleet. Jake's ship was detected by Earth's sensors, and he was quickly surrounded by human fighters. This is Jake Martinez, he transmitted. I'm human. I have critical information about the incoming attack. Within hours, Jake was on Earth's main space station, briefing military leaders about Vextai capabilities and weaknesses. Their ships are powerful, he explained, but they're used to fighting enemies who are afraid of them. Humans don't give up easily, and that might surprise them. Admiral Sarah Kim, the leader of Earth's combined fleet, studied the tactical information Jake had provided. We can't match their firepower, she said, but we might be able to use their overconfidence against them. The Vextai fleet arrived exactly when Jake had predicted. Commander Vexcot, now calling himself Acting Emperor, sent a surrender demand to Earth. Humans of Earth, his message said, you have sent an infiltrator to corrupt our queen. Surrender, now, and we will make your deaths quick. Earth's response was delivered by Admiral Kim herself. This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Force. We reject your demand. Come and take our world if you can. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vextai ships were larger and more powerful, but human fighters moved with a creativity and unpredictability that confused the alien tactics. Jake flew his stolen courier ship alongside Earth's defenders. His knowledge of Vextai ship designs helped him target their weak points. More importantly, he was able to jam their communications and create confusion in their formations. But just when it seemed Earth might be overwhelmed, an unexpected ally arrived. Queen Zarathel's personal ship, the Pride of Vextai, dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began attacking Vexcot's fleet from behind. This is Queen Zarathel, her voice transmitted across all frequencies. Vexcot is a traitor and usurper. All loyal Vextai ships will stand down immediately. Several ships in the fleet stopped fighting, unsure who to obey. Others continued their attack, but now they were fighting on two fronts. Jake's heart soared when he heard Zarathel's voice. She had survived the battle on her ship and had come to help defend Earth. Together, Jake and Zarathel coordinated the defense. Jake's human understanding of irregular tactics combined with Zarathel's knowledge of Vextai strategy proved to be a powerful combination. The battle turned when Captain Zelandra, commanding one of the largest Vextai ships, declared her loyalty to Queen Zarathel and turned her weapons on Vexcot's flagship. Seeing the tide turning against him, Vexcot made a desperate decision. He aimed his ship's main weapons at Earth itself, intending to destroy the planet's surface even if he died in the process. But Jake was ready for this move. Using the courier ship's speed, he flew directly into the path of Vexcot's ship and transmitted a computer virus into their systems. The virus, based on human computer technology that the Vextai had never encountered, disabled their weapons at the crucial moment. Vexcot's ship was quickly surrounded and Queen Zarathel had fully recovered from her illness, but something had changed between her and Jake. The way he had cared for her during those difficult days had touched something deep in her heart. She found herself thinking about him even when they were apart. For Jake, the feelings were becoming impossible to ignore. Every day he spent with the Queen made his deception feel heavier. She was not the monster he had expected. She was intelligent, lonely, and trying to become a better ruler because of his influence. But their growing closeness was about to be shattered. Commander Vexcot had chosen his moment carefully. The monthly council meeting was attended by all, the Empire's highest officials. News from this meeting would spread throughout the Vextai worlds within days. "My Queen," Vexcot said as the meeting began, "I have disturbing information about your android companion." Zarathel looked up from the reports she was reading. "What kind of information?" "I have investigated its claimed origins. The scientists, it named as its creators, do not exist. Luna Station has no record of advanced android research. In fact, there is no record of this android being built anywhere in known space." The council members looked at each other with concern. If the android was not what it claimed to be, what was it? Perhaps the records were classified, Zarathel suggested, but her voice showed doubt. "I have also analyzed its physical structure, using our ship's sensors," Vexcot continued. "It has a skeletal system, circulatory system, and internal organs. No android would need such things." Zarathel felt her heart skip a beat. She was beginning to understand what Vexcot was suggesting. "My Queen," Vexcot said dramatically, "your android is not an android at all. It is a human being." Gasps echoed through the council chamber. Several members stood up in shock. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a dangerous species. They were unpredictable, aggressive, and clever in ways that made them threats to more advanced civilizations. "Impossible," Zarathel whispered. But even as she said it, everything began to make sense. Jake's reactions were too real, his emotions too genuine. She had thought it was advanced programming, but it was actually because he was truly alive. Furthermore, Vexcot continued, "This deception means that humans have successfully infiltrated our empire. This human has been influencing our Queen's decisions for months. Who knows what damage has been done? We must execute it immediately," declared General Moxtel, "and we must strike at the human homeworld before they can launch more infiltrators." "Yes," agreed Admiral Korthak. "We should destroy Earth as an example to other species who might try to deceive us." Zarathel sat in shocked silence as her council discussed plans to kill Jake and attack his entire species. The man who had shown her kindness, who had helped her become a better ruler, who had cared for her when she was sick, he was real. His feelings for her had been real, but he had also lied to her for months. "My Queen," Vexcot said, "what are your orders?" Zarathel looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. They all expected her to order Jake's death and approve the attack on Earth. It was the logical response to deception and potential threat. But when she thought about Jake, she could not bring herself to order his execution. "I will consider this information," she said finally. "The council is dismissed." "My Queen," General Moxtel protested, "every moment we delay gives the humans more time to prepare their next attack." "I said the council is dismissed," Zarathel repeated, her voice carrying the dangerous tone that made even generals afraid. After everyone left, Zarathel sat alone in the council chamber for a long time. Her mind was spinning with conflicting emotions. Anger at being deceived, fear about what Jake's presence might mean, but also sadness at the thought of losing him. Finally, she went to find Jake. She found him in the garden, tending to the alien, flowers he had grown to love. He looked up when he heard her approaching, and his face lit up with a smile. "You look better today," he said. "Your color is much healthier." "Jake," she said quietly, "we need to talk." Something in her tone made Jake's smile fade. He followed her to her private chambers where she sealed the door behind them. "I know what you are," she said without preamble. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "What do you mean?" "You are not an android. You are human." For a moment, Jake considered trying to maintain the deception. But looking into her 6 eyes, he realized there was no point. She knew the truth. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm human." "How long have you known that I knew?" "You just told me. I've been terrified you would find out since the day I arrived." Zarathel studied his face. He looked genuinely afraid but also relieved that the secret was finally out. "Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" "Because I thought you would kill me," Jake answered honestly. "I'd heard stories about what the Vextai do to humans. I was trying to survive." "And all this time you have been pretending to care about me?" Jake stepped closer to her. "No. That part was real. Everything I felt, everything I said about caring. For you, that was all real. How can I believe you? You have been lying to me for months." "Because," Jake said, his voice becoming passionate, "if I was just pretending, I would have tried to escape by now. I would have tried to contact my people or sabotage your ship. Instead, I stayed here because I wanted to be with you." Zarathel wanted to believe him, but the betrayal still hurt. "My council wants me to execute you," she said. "They also want to attack Earth and destroy your species." Jake felt his knees go weak. "Are you going to do it?" Zarathel was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know." "Please," Jake said. "If you're going to kill me, that's your choice. But don't attack Earth. Most humans don't even know your empire exists. They had nothing to do with my being here." "How did you end up being sold as an android?" Jake told her the whole story. The pirate attack on his colony. Being sold as a slave. The trader's decision to market him as an expensive android to increase the price. "So you really are a victim in this too," Zarathel said when he finished. "Yes, but I understand if you can't trust me anymore." Zarathel walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "My advisors say humans are dangerous, that your species is aggressive and unpredictable." "Some are," Jake admitted. "But so are some Vextai. So are some of every species. Most humans just want to live in peace with their families." "Families," Zarathel repeated. She remembered all the stories Jake had told her about human families and their bonds of love. "What would happen if I let you go?" she asked. "I would try to get back to Earth and warn them about the coming attack. And if I don't let you go, then I'll stay here and accept whatever you decide to do with me." Zarathel turned to face him, "Even knowing that staying might mean your death?" "Yes." "Why?" Jake looked into her eyes and decided to tell her the complete truth. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Zarathel stared at him in shock. In all her 300 years of life, no one had ever said those words to her. "You love me?" she whispered. "Yes. I know it's impossible. I know we're different species from different worlds. But these months we've spent together, getting to know you, seeing you change and grow. I've fallen in love with who you are." Zarathel felt tears forming in her eyes. She had thought love was a weakness, something that made rulers vulnerable. But hearing Jake say those words made her feel stronger, not weaker. "I love you too," she whispered back. They stood there looking at each other, both amazed by what they had just admitted. But their moment was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the sound of running feet echoed in the corridors. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Zarathel activated a communication panel. "Report," she commanded. "My queen," came the voice of Captain Zelandra. "Commander Vexcott has taken control of the bridge. He claims you are compromised by the human and unfit to command. He has declared himself acting leader of the ship." Zarathel's eyes blazed with fury. "A coup. He's trying to remove me from power." "And when he succeeds," Jake asked, "he'll execute you immediately and launch the attack on Earth." Jake grabbed her hands. "Then we have to stop him." "We? You're still the rightful queen. I know this ship better than any human should. Together we might be able to retake control." Zarathel looked at Jake with new respect. Even facing death, he was ready to fight beside her. "Very well," she said. "But if we fail, we die together." "I can't think of anyone I'd rather die beside," Jake replied. As they prepared to fight for both their lives and the future of two species, Zarathel realized that Jake had given her something she had never had before. Someone who would stand with her not out of fear or duty, but out of love. Now they had to prove that love could be stronger than prejudice and fear.